Hi, and no, there's no new circuit with 51 knobs, at least not that I know of. This is just my bad Photoshop. But stick around and this clip will show you how to use your circuit as a 51 knob MIDI controller. Now, the reason that you'd even want something like that is if you want to use a software synth. And one of the turnoffs of using software synthesizers is turning knobs with a mouse. It's just no fun. And there are quite a few MIDI controllers out there with knobs like Novation's Launch Control XL, controllers by Arturia, and many others. But if you have a circuit laying around the house, you might not know it, but you've also got a 51 knob MIDI controller right at your fingertips. And to illustrate this, I'll be using Arturia's Mini V, which is a software synth emulation of the classic Mini Moog from the 70s. So let's start with the basics. The minute you connect your circuit to your iPad or computer, it starts sending MIDI data to it. And you can pick up on this using the MIDI learn function in your synth, which I just activated clicking this button. And then all I have to do is pick a button or knob that I want to control, and then turn the corresponding knob on the circuit. And just keep doing this. This will be my filter control. I'll use this knob to control resonance. And you can see I'm trying to arrange the knobs more or less the same way they're arranged on the screen so that I can easily remember it later on. Okay, let's turn off MIDI Learn for now. And now we can just start playing around with our new synth knobs. And note that even though the knobs are circular, you can still map them to on-off switches like I did here. You can also still use the circuit as a sequencer. So I'll program a note here, a long gated note. And now I'm free to use both hands to twiddle knobs. Try that with a mouse. Okay, cool. Let's do another row. I'll turn on MIDI mapping, assign this switch to this knob. Let's do my filter attack to this knob, assign this one to this one, here, and here. Okay, great. I just completed the assignment of 8 different knobs as MIDI controls. So where are my other knobs? Where's my 51 knobs, you ask? Well, it turns out that when you change a view in the circuit, the knobs will send out different control change numbers. What this means is that when we hit MIDI Learn on switches and turn the knobs now in a different view, if your soft synth can pick up events across all MIDI channels, and we'll talk about that in a bit, what you do when your soft synth can't do that, you can have basically multiple pages of knobs based on the view you're in controlling different knobs on your synth. And note that you can also program the filter knob to control one item in your soft synth as well. Okay, so I'll just quickly assign this row on synth 2, on the synth 2 view, to these oscillator controls. Super easy to do it quickly. This is a switch, works fine. And the waveform, even though this is sort of like a step switch, it's also very easy to control with a knob as well. Okay, so the next view that I can use to control my knobs is drum 1 and drum 2. That's one view for both drums. So I'll use the top row to control oscillator 2. While we're doing this a little bit on what's going on behind the scenes, these knobs, because we're in drum mode, are sending CC information on channel 10. Before, when we were in synth 1 view, we were sending on MIDI channel 1, and synth 2 sends information on MIDI channel 2. Okay, so drums 1 and 2 give you one view, which is basically 8 knobs that you can use to control your synth. Drums 3 and 4 will give you another 8 knobs. We'll skip that and go right ahead to the mixer. You only have 6 working knobs. These two don't affect anything when you're in mixer view, and I'm going to use the mixer knobs to control the mixer of my synth. It's always good to try and keep things associated more or less with what's going on with your soft synth. That way it's easier to remember what's going on and you don't need to stick labels on your circuit. And that's how easy it is to use the mixer section on your circuit as a MIDI controller for the mixer section on your soft synth. Okay, let's move on to the effects section. This section contains 2 pages of knobs that you can use to control your synth, and I think it's only appropriate that I click the effects section of my synth and use the effects knobs to control the effects portion of the soft synth. Let's start with delay. I'll use the leftmost button as an on-off switch for the effect. And then again, in trying to make things aligned the same way that they are on the screen of my soft synth, I'll take these 4 knobs and use the knobs on the right to control them. Note that in the effects section, just like the mixer, you only have 6 knobs, not 8 knobs. Finally, I'll use this knob here to be my dry-wet control for the effect. Okay, on to page 2 or view 2 in the effects section. Here I get another 6 knobs, and I'll use that to control the chorus effect. Again, the on-off will be mapped to the leftmost. And again, this is my choice. You can choose to do anything you want. And then I see this sort of triangular shape, so I'll map the 3 triangular knobs here on the right to correspond to the chorus controls. And then finally, I'll use this knob to control the type of chorus. Again, just to complete what's going on behind the scenes, all messages for the effects are sent on MIDI channel 16. For the mixer, by the way, they're sent on a mix of both channels 10 and 16. Okay, so we're all set up. Let's light this candle. So we can now use the synth completely mouse-free. A word about the controls. I tried to keep the controls I want to use while I'm playing manually associated with the views on synth 1 and 2. And I can always program a session if I want to hear a sound in the background as I mess around with the knobs on the other views. So now that I have this simple loop going, go into my effects section, turn on delay with this knob. Remember, that's how I programmed it. And now I can mess around with the delay parameters to my heart's content. This is my dry-wet knob. And the nice thing is, once you get used to remembering where stuff is, you can do all of this completely mouse-free. So let's go to my chorus effect. Right, that's the reverb page view. Turn it on. I'll just mess around with this for a bit. Remember, the 3 knobs are shaped just like they are on the screen. And this left knob, I use that to control the chorus mode. Notice even though that's a 3-mode dial, I can use the knob to change it, no problem. And if I don't like the result, it's easy to turn it off. Okay, before we move on to some potential problems and how to solve them, here's a summary. You've got 8 knobs on channel 1, 8 knobs on channel 2, drums 1 and 2 have 8, drums 3 and 4 have 8. The mixer has 6 knobs. In the effects section, 6 controllers in the delay mode, 6 in reverb, and of course, the 1 filter knob. All that for a grand total of 51 MIDI controllers. Okay, next up, motion sequencing. So, let's take, for example, this filter knob. You can sequence that and any other knob using the built-in sequencer on the circuit. Hit record. Move the knob, and the motion is recorded. And I think that's really cool because anytime you just want something different than the synth you have on your circuit, get a different one and control it using the same circuit. Okay, let's talk about some issues you might encounter. So this is Synth Master. It's an amazing soft synth, very complex, but very powerful. And I'll use it to illustrate something you might encounter. I'm going to go ahead and program the filter and resonance knobs just to show you that it works well. Same thing as we talked about before. Right? I can play with the circuit knobs and control parameters. The minute I MIDI learn a knob and associate it with SynthMaster, it works just fine. However, unlike the Arturia synths that can listen to MIDI data across all MIDI channels, SynthMaster makes you choose just one channel, which means that once you pick one, let's say channel 1 in this case, then notes and control changes work well on channel 1, but on channel 2 nothing happens because the synth is not listening in onto that channel. So in this case, you can only really use 8 knobs to control your synth. But there's a way around that if we load the synth into a DAW or something else that's able to route more channels into it. So let's do that. So I've got a brand new instance of Ableton here. I'll take Synth Master 2.8 and drag it onto a new MIDI track. And then make sure that my MIDI input is activated. Press the record button. That works. Now if I make sure that this track is set up to intercept all MIDI channels, all information coming in from all channels, then yep, synth 1 is sending data, and let's move to synth 2. That works too. Okay, so now everything should theoretically be okay. We're routing all the MIDI channels into the one channel that Synth Master is listening onto. Let's program the knob to control the filter. So the issue here is that the macros on channel 1 and 2 send the same control number. You can see here I didn't program the macro on synth 2, but it's still controlling the same knob that synth 1 is controlling on that particular macro. So bottom line, you can go to other views and use those knobs as much as you want, but the knobs on synth 1 and synth 2 will have the same function. You get basically 8 knobs less, so instead of 51 different knobs, you get 43. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, hit subscribe because there's more of this stuff coming. Thanks very much for watching.